Stop ironing my head. Stop ironing my head. Stop ironing my head. Again, literally, if you go by the syntactical arrangement of word, then you do not gather anything. You do not understand. What is it so weird? Stop ironing my head. We are in clothes, we are in suits, but we do not iron his body parts. Stop ironing my head. What does it mean? Now here you see the picture also. It's not making any sense to you. It's just a normal iron. A lady is ironing something, some sheet and all. It's not making a sense. It makes sense only when you understand a deeper meaning. What does it mean? Stop annoying me. Stop ironing my head means stop annoying me. Do not bully me. Do not bother me. Stop ironing my head. So in that situation, you can use this idiom. Usage is, if he annoys you next time, just tell him clearly to stop ironing your head, or else you would complain the boss. So now you understand the meaning, the deeper meaning, the suggested meaning. What is it? When you say to somebody that stop ironing my head, that means you are telling him or her that stop annoying you. I have taken so many idioms so that you may clearly understand the concept of pragmatics. Under the weather. Now, under the weather. Again, here the three-worded phrase does not make any sense. Under the weather. You see a picture. It's not making any sense again. What does it mean? What does it mean? Under the weather means to feel ill or tired. If you're not well, if you're fatigued, if you're tired, in that situation you say that you're feeling under the weather. You're feeling under the weather. So usage would be like, sorry, I'm not well today. I'm feeling a bit under the weather. Okay, I'm unwell. I'm not in a good shape. When you are not in a good shape, when you are not well, in that situation, you say that you are not under the weather. Or you're not feeling well. You are feeling a bit under the weather. Under the weather. This is what you say. I'm feeling a bit under the weather. That means you're not well. A piece of cake. A piece of cake. A piece of cake is a common idiom. Probably you might know the meaning of it. A piece of cake, yes, because it's commonly used. It's a very common idiom. Otherwise, if you go by literal meaning, you would not gather as to what it means. A piece of cake. Okay, a piece of bread, a piece of cake. Now, here you see a piece of cake. Although baby has a cake in front of him, yet you find the baby very upset. Okay, I am just joking, I'm just kidding. Otherwise, a piece of cake you have here, a piece of cake like you have the syntactical arrangement of words here, but they are not making any sense here. What does it mean, a piece of cake? It means it's really easy. When something is easy, okay, when something does not require any effort, when something does not require any labor, then you say it is a piece of cake. For example, and now this is a sentence here, a usage. Driving a car may appear difficult initially, but it is actually a piece of cake once you learn it. So driving isn't difficult. It appears difficult initially when you do not know how to drive, but once you learn driving, you know how easy it is. It is in fact a piece of cake. So this you can say for anything in fact. Like even cycling may be very difficult initially, but once you know how to cycle, then you say, well, it's a piece of cake. And this you can say about the present concept of linguistics that we are dealing with, the subfield of linguistics that we are dealing with. What's it? Pragmatics. Okay, pragmatics, like when we started discussing it, appeared a bit difficult, but now we have almost covered more than half of it, or say we are almost through it. So we have understood what pragmatics means. We know that it deals with the contextual meaning. We know that it deals with the hidden meaning. We know that suggestive meaning is more important in pragmatics. We know that pragmatics is something beyond semantics. So it sounds very easy. It's almost a piece of cake for us, isn't it? I hope it's a piece of cake for all of you out there. Say yes. Okay. Now we move on to the next one. Pot calling the kettle black. Pot calling the kettle black. Now, do pots speak to each other? Do they have a conversation? Pot and kettle. Now this sounds very weird, isn't it? Pot calling the kettle black. It's not giving any meaning. If you go by the literal or the syntactical arrangement of words, it sounds very meaningless. And here you have the picture also. You say that's a kettle and it's a saucepan, a pot, and they are put close together. But like in our wildest of dreams, we cannot imagine them talking together when they're left in the kitchen on the slab. Can we imagine? No, we cannot. Now see, what's the caption? You get the same color, you idiot. That means we are just the same. There is no difference in us. Okay, pot calling the kettle black. Now this sounds funny if you go by the literal meaning. But if you see the suggested meaning, the hidden meaning, what does it mean? It means accusing someone of fault that one has oneself. Accusing someone of fault that one has oneself. For example, you know, like I'm a late riser, and if I accuse my brother for waking up late in the mornings, then that means, you know, I am calling the kettle black. I myself have that fault, but I'm not seeing my fault and I'm pointing out somebody else's fault. That's really, you know, very strange. The person might say, you know, in whom you are trying to see that fault, he might say, look who's talking, look who's talking. If I say, come on, you wake up so late, you would say, look who's talking, you yourself rise so late. So pot calling the kettle black, meaning accusing someone of faults that one has oneself. Usage: I can't believe that you're upset because I was late. That is a pot calling the kettle black. Means you yourself is a late comer. You come late almost every day, and I came once and you are calling me that that I was late. I can't believe that you are upset because I was late. So do not accuse me for the fault that you have it in yourself in profusion. I can't believe that you are upset because I was late. There's a pot calling the kettle black. So it's nice. And you know, if you use these idioms there in your conversation, in your utterances, that makes your communication interesting, and that also gives a clue, a hint to the listener that you are really well read. You have a sense of language, you are a lover of language. Give someone a stick. This is the last idiom that we have here. Give someone a stick. If you go by the literal meaning, it doesn't give you any meaning at all. It sounds meaningless. So the literal meaning is not important. What is important? The suggestive meaning is important, as it is with all idioms. So this is also not an exception. Give someone a stick. Now you see the picture also here. A dog is shown and it is holding a stick in its mouth. Now this again is not giving you any hint as to what it means. What it means. So let us see, what does it mean? It means to criticize, judge, or disapprove of someone. Give someone stick means to criticize, to condemn, to judge, or disapprove someone for something. Like, you know, when you're happy with when you're not happy with somebody on some point, when you condemn him or her, then you use the idiom give someone a stick. Usage will make it more obvious, more clear. The spectators gave the players a lot of stick for their terrible performance. Here now it's very clear. The spectators gave the players a lot of stick for their terrible performance. Now the players didn't do well in the match as was expected of them, because, you know, the spectators, they buy tickets and they go to stadium to watch the show, and when they see that their favorite players, their ideals, they are not doing well, they lose match, they cut a sorry figure, or they lose the match, the other party wins. So what do the spectators do? They get disappointed, and out of disappointment they give their players a stick. They give their players a stick. Here it is said a lot of stick means, and they were terribly condemned by the spectators, by the fans of the players. Why? Because the players didn't do well in the game. They gave a poor performance, and because of their performance, the spectators were disappointed, and as a result, the spectators gave the players a lot of stick for their terrible performance. Now this happens, you must have seen parents also doing the same thing. Like, you know, when parents are not happy with the result, with the progress of their kids, then they give them a stick. They give them a stick means they reproach them, they scold them, they reproach them. Why? Because they didn't do well as was expected of them. They didn't study properly, and they were wasting their time, so they disappointed their parents. So in fact, it's a very common situation. It's a very common situation, because all the time, you know, we are judging, we are criticizing, we are disapproving of people or situations. So whenever you have this kind of situation of disapproval, of criticism, then you use the phrase, the idiom, I must say idiom, not phrase, idiom, give someone a stick. Give someone a stick. Now here there are three words, and words as such, you know, do not give the meaning which in fact the idiom carries. Like you can't make out that give someone a stick means to criticize. That is why the literal meaning is not important. It's not giving any clue as to what the idiom means. It's not giving any suggestion. But the hidden meaning, the suggestive meaning, and you know the suggestive meaning only when you have read the idiom before, or you have already been told the meaning of it, the idiom, by your parents or by your teacher, then only you know the idiom, because they have specific meanings. You can't just give a meaning of your own. Idioms have meanings and they have specific meanings, and unless you know the meaning of idiom, you are not going to do well in exams. So you cannot make out. You will have to learn the idioms. Some idioms are very tricky. Some idioms are very difficult to understand. Why? Because the literal meaning does not give any clue as to what they mean, what they actually mean. So here the hidden meaning is important. This is not the case with all the idioms, but some of the idioms are very tricky. You should know them before. So what does it mean? To criticize, to judge or disapprove of someone. Is that fine? Okay. David Lodge, writing in the Paradise News, says that pragmatics gives humans a fuller, deeper, and generally more reasonable account of human language behavior. Pragmatics is a prerequisite for understanding utterances. It is a desideratum for any language, and without it, what a person actually means when he is speaking cannot be clearly interpreted. The social context, the choice of words, the signs, the symbols, the body gestures, and tone of voice to put together. The pragmatics is what makes utterances clear or vague to the speaker and his listeners. So David Lodge, linguist, writing in Paradise News, says that pragmatics gives human beings a fuller, deeper, and generally more reasonable account of human language behavior. Certainly, we totally agree with him. It does give human beings a fuller, a complete, that means a total and absolute, deeper, and generally more reasonable account of human language behavior. Language behavior, the language that we use. Without pragmatics, we cannot have a fuller, deeper, and reasonable account of human behavior. Because pragmatics, in fact, gives us a peep into the minds of the speakers. What do they speak? How do they speak? What words they use? How do they arrange their words? Okay, the body gestures that they carry, and the tone, the intonation, everything is very important. So that gives us a peep into the human behavior. If we do not know, if we do not have a good knowledge of pragmatics, then we cannot understand human behavior properly. Or maybe, our understanding of human behavior will be fallacious. We can have a clear-cut understanding of human behavior only when we have a good knowledge of pragmatics. If you understand pragmatics, it's not that you require a formal education to understand pragmatics. Here we are just dealing with the theoretical part of it. Otherwise, we all have a knowledge of pragmatics. This is there within us. In fact, we gather it naturally, we gather it spontaneously, we gather it in our environment naturally. In fact, the sagacity, the practical wisdom that you have. This is what pragmatics is, in fact. It is akin to the word, although it's the word pragmatic and study of pragmatics is different, yet there is a little connection there. David Lodge, writing in the Paradise News, says that pragmatics gives human beings a fuller, deeper, and generally more reasonable account of human language behavior. Certainly, it does. Pragmatics is a prerequisite, an essential condition for understanding utterances. Okay, if you know pragmatics, then you can understand utterances. Utterances, that is the sentences spoken by the speakers. If like a child, for example, is not very good at pragmatics. Why? Because he doesn't have much experience of the world. He is new to the world, so he doesn't understand pragmatics. He only sees the literal meaning. But as we grow up, we gather pragmatics. We understand the deeper meaning through our environment, through our social circles, in our social context, in our social settings. How do people say interact? How do people react? So this we learn gradually as we grow up. Like people who are elderly, experienced, they have a good understanding of human behavior. So pragmatics is a prerequisite of understanding utterances. It is a desideratum. Desideratum again means prerequisite, an essential quality, something which is very necessary. So pragmatics is a desideratum for any language. And without it, that is without pragmatics, what a person actually means when he's speaking cannot be clearly interpreted. Like, you cannot interpret a person, you cannot understand a person if you do not have a sound knowledge of pragmatics. Why? Because if you go just by the literal meaning, then you can be cheated, you can be misled. The surface meaning is not important. You can understand a person well only when you understand the deeper meaning, the hidden meaning, the meaning beyond his words. The social context, the choice of words, the signs, the symbols. These are all, we studied under the scope of pragmatics. So again, they're talking about the same thing. The social context, the choice of words, the signs, the symbols, the body gestures, and tone of voice to put together the pragmatics. What is pragmatics? Pragmatics is the sum total of all these. I repeat, pragmatics is the sum total of all these. It's the sum total of the social context, the choice of words, the signs, the symbols, the body gestures, and tone of voice. Okay, the pragmatics is what makes utterances clear or vague to the speaker and his listeners. Yeah, the pragmatics is important both for the speaker as well as for the listener, because a person who has a sound knowledge of pragmatics would know how to say and what what gestures to have. Like sometimes our gestures do not correspond with our utterances, and that's why we sound very weird, very strange, very funny also. So gestures, our body language should also correspond with our utterances. That's very important. So the pragmatics is what makes utterances clear or vague to the speaker and his listeners. And if you do not, if suppose the listeners do not have sound knowledge of pragmatics, then they won't know as to what the speaker is trying to convey. So a speaker, can be clear or can be unclear, that is vague, according to the sentences that he is using, according to the words that he is making use of. Okay, according to the tone that he carries. So the pragmatics is what makes utterances clear or vague to the speaker and his listeners. The knowledge of pragmatics is important both for the speaker and the listener. Is it fine? Yes, we can move.